The stagecoach rattled into Green River, Wyoming on a blistering afternoon in July of 1878, carrying a woman whose eyes held more secrets than the desert held sand. Amanda Vaughn pressed one hand against the swell of her belly beneath her dusty traveling dress, the other gripping the edge of the wooden seat as the wheels jolted over another rut in the road. 6 months along, and every mile of this journey west had been a battle between hope and despair. The other passengers had eyed her swollen stomach with varying degrees of judgment throughout the trip from St. Louis, but she had learned to keep her gaze fixed on the horizon, on the promise of something better waiting at the end of this endless road. The driver called out as they approached the collection of weathered buildings that made up the town. Amanda peered through the window at the main street, taking in the saloon, the general store, the livery stable, and a dozen other structures that spoke of a community trying to carve civilization out of wilderness. The Rocky Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still touched with snow despite the summer heat. She had $23 left to her name, no family waiting for her, and nowhere to go. The advertisement she had seen in the St. Louis newspaper 3 months ago had seemed like providence. Housekeeper wanted for ranch outside Green River, Wyoming. Room and board provided. Apply to Xavier Vaughn, care of Green River General Store. She had written immediately, explaining her situation with as much honesty as she dared, and had received a terse reply 2 weeks later. Position available. Can provide room and board. Wages negotiable upon arrival. The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the general store, and Amanda accepted the driver's hand as she climbed down, grateful for the solid ground beneath her feet after days of constant motion. Her single trunk landed in the dust beside her with a heavy thud. "You have someone meeting you, miss?" the driver asked, his weathered face creased with concern as he noticed her condition. "I am hoping to find Xavier Vaughn," Amanda said, smoothing down her skirts and trying to look more confident than she felt. "He owns a ranch near here." "Xavier Vaughn." The driver's eyebrows rose. "The Vaughn spread is about 5 miles northwest of town. Big operation, one of the biggest in these parts. Xavier is a good man, fair and honest. You are expected." "I hope so," Amanda said quietly. "I am here about the housekeeper position." The driver's expression shifted to something between surprise and approval. "Well then, you will want to head into the store. They can get word out to the ranch. Xavier comes into town for supplies most Saturdays, but today being Thursday, someone will need to fetch him." Amanda thanked him and gathered her courage along with her reticule. The baby kicked as she walked toward the store entrance, as if reminding her that she was not alone in this venture, that another life depended on the decisions she made now. She touched her belly briefly, a gesture that had become habit, and pushed open the door. The interior was dim and cool after the bright heat outside. Shelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling, packed with everything from canned goods to bolts of fabric to farming equipment. A man in his 50s stood behind the counter, his wire-rimmed spectacles perched on his nose as he examined a ledger. "Help you, miss?" he asked, looking up. "I am Amanda Vaughn," she said. "I am here to see Xavier Vaughn about the housekeeper position. I wrote to him several months ago." The shopkeeper's eyes widened slightly as they took in her condition, but he recovered quickly. "Ah, yes. Xavier mentioned he had hired someone. I am Thomas Garrett. I own this store. Xavier's been expecting you, though I think he figured you would have arrived sooner." "The journey took longer than anticipated," Amanda said, which was true enough. She had spent 3 weeks working in a Denver boarding house to earn enough money to continue west after her funds had run dangerously low. "Well, let me send my boy out to the Vaughn place. It will be a couple hours before Xavier can get here. You are welcome to wait here, or the hotel has a sitting room for ladies." "Here will be fine, thank you," Amanda said. She had no money to waste on hotel amenities she did not need. Thomas called for his son, a lanky teenager who appeared from the back room. After giving him instructions, Thomas turned back to Amanda. "Can I get you anything? Water? Something to eat?" "Water would be wonderful," Amanda admitted. Her throat was parched from the dusty journey. As Thomas fetched her a cup of cool water from the barrel in the back, Amanda settled onto a wooden chair near the window where she could watch the street. She sipped the water slowly, trying to calm the nervous flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the baby's movements. What would Xavier Vaughn be like? His letters had been brief and businesslike, revealing nothing of his character beyond efficiency and a willingness to hire a woman sight unseen based on her references from the boarding house in St. Louis, where she had worked before everything fell apart. She had been honest in her letter about her condition, though she had not gone into details about how she came to be unmarried and expecting. To her surprise, his response had not rescinded the offer. "If you can keep house and cook, your personal circumstances are your own business," he had written. The afternoon crawled by. Amanda watched the townspeople go about their business, cowboys riding in and out, women with market baskets, children playing in the side streets. This would be her home now, or at least the area near it. She tried to imagine herself belonging here, building a life for herself and her child in this rugged country. The sun was lowering toward the mountains when she heard the sound of hoofbeats and the jingle of harness. A wagon pulled up in front of the store, drawn by two sturdy horses. The man who climbed down was tall and lean, his movements economical and sure. He wore dusty work clothes, a battered hat, and boots that had seen serious use. As he stepped onto the boardwalk and pushed open the door, Amanda got her first clear look at his face. Xavier Vaughn was younger than she had expected, perhaps 30 or 32, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. His face was strong-featured, handsome in a rough-hewn way, with lines around his eyes that spoke of years squinting into the sun. Those eyes were a striking blue-gray, sharp and assessing as they swept the store and landed on her. "Miss Vaughn?" he asked, removing his hat. His voice was deep and steady. "Yes," Amanda said, rising from her chair. "Mr. Vaughn." He nodded, studying her with an intensity that made her want to fidget. His gaze dropped briefly to her swollen belly, and she steeled herself for whatever judgment might follow. But when his eyes met hers again, she saw only calm acceptance. "I appreciate you making the journey," he said. "It is a long way from St. Louis." "Thank you for the opportunity," Amanda replied. "I am ready to work hard." "I am sure you are," he glanced at Thomas. "Put her supplies on my account, whatever she needs for the journey out and to get started." "Actually, I should probably discuss wages first," Amanda said quickly. "To know what I can afford." Xavier's expression softened slightly. "We can work out the details at the ranch. For now, get whatever you need. We will settle accounts later." It was generous, perhaps too generous, and Amanda felt a flicker of suspicion. But she was also exhausted, pregnant, and nearly broke. She could not afford to turn down kindness, even if she did not fully understand it. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Your trunk outside?" Xavier asked. "Yes." "I will load it in the wagon. Take your time getting what you need." He settled his hat back on his head and headed outside. Amanda turned to Thomas, who was watching with barely concealed curiosity. "I will need a few basic things," she said. "Perhaps you could help me select them." 20 minutes later, with a box of essentials added to the wagon beside her trunk, Amanda climbed onto the wagon seat beside Xavier. The height was awkward with her pregnant belly, but she managed it without too much undignified scrambling. Xavier did not offer to help, for which she was grateful. She did not want to start this arrangement feeling like an invalid. As they rolled out of town, heading northwest on a rutted track that could barely be called a road, Xavier kept his attention on the horses. Amanda studied the landscape, noting the way the grassland rolled away toward the mountains, dotted with sage and occasional stands of cottonwood trees where water ran. "It is beautiful country," she said finally, breaking the silence. "It can be," Xavier agreed. "Hard too, especially in winter. But it grows on you. How long have you been here?" 10 years. Came out from Illinois after the war. Started with nothing but a good horse and a bad attitude, but the land was available for those willing to work for it. Amanda heard the pride in his voice, the satisfaction of a man who had built something from nothing. "It must have been difficult. Everything worth doing is." He glanced at her briefly. "Your letter said you worked in a boarding house in St. Louis. What made you want to come west?" She had prepared an answer for this question, one that was true without being complete. "I needed a fresh start. St. Louis held too many bad memories." Xavier nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Fair enough. We all have our reasons for being where we are." They rode in silence for a while longer. The sun was painting the sky in shades of gold and orange when buildings appeared in the distance. The Vaughn ranch was more substantial than Amanda had expected. The main house was a solid 2-story structure with a wide porch, built of logs and planking. Behind it stood a large barn, several outbuildings, and a network of corrals. She could see cattle dotting the range in the distance, hundreds of them from what she could tell. "This is quite an operation," Amanda said, genuinely impressed. "It keeps me busy," Xavier said with what might have been the ghost of a smile. "I have 6 hands working for me, though 3 of them are out with the herd right now. The ones at the ranch stay in the bunkhouse over there. The main house is just me, just him. So he was unmarried." Amanda had wondered but had not wanted to assume. "Where is the housekeeper's room?" she asked. "Upstairs. There are 4 bedrooms up there. I use one. You can have your pick of the other 3. He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. "One of them is bigger, gets good morning light. Might be suitable for you and the baby once it comes." The casual way he mentioned the baby, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, made Amanda's throat tighten. She had spent months being treated as if her pregnancy were a scandal or a shame. To hear him speak of it so matter-of-factly was unexpectedly moving. "Thank you," she managed. Xavier hopped down from the wagon and came around to her side, offering his hand this time. Amanda accepted it, feeling the callous strength of his palm as he steadied her descent. For a moment they stood close together, and she caught the scent of leather and sage and honest sweat. Then he stepped back, releasing her hand. "Let me show you inside, then I will bring your things up." The interior of the house was clean but Spartan, with the look of a place maintained by someone who saw housekeeping as a necessary chore rather than an art. The main room served as kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace, a sturdy table, and simple furniture. Everything was well made but utilitarian. "Kitchen is fairly well stocked," Xavier said, gesturing to the cupboards and the cast iron stove. "I keep chickens for eggs, and there is a root cellar out back. We butcher our own beef, and I trade in town for other supplies. You will have pretty much anything you need to cook with." He led her up the narrow stairs to the second floor. The hallway had 4 doors opening off it. Xavier opened the one at the far end. "This is the bigger room I mentioned." Amanda stepped inside and caught her breath. It was indeed larger than she had expected, with 2 windows that would let in ample light. A bed frame stood against one wall, a chest of drawers against another, and there was room for more furniture if needed. Someone had made an effort here. The floor was swept clean and the windows were uncovered, offering a view of the mountains in the distance. "This is lovely," Amanda said softly. It was my sister's room, Xavier said from the doorway. She lived here for a few years after I built the house. Got married 2 years ago, moved to her husband's place in Montana. I could not take her room, Amanda protested. She would want someone to use it. Emily hated waste. Xavier's voice held a note of affection. There is a cradle in the attic from when she had her first baby here. I can bring it down when you need it. Amanda felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back fiercely. She had not expected this kind of thoughtfulness from a stranger. Why are you being so kind to me? Xavier was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured. My sister found herself in a difficult situation once. The man responsible ran off, and she was left to face the consequences alone. Our parents were dead by then, so she came here. I know what it takes for a woman to keep going when the world is telling her she should be ashamed. You have nothing to be ashamed of, Miss Vaughn. You are here to work, and that baby is going to need a home. This can be that home for as long as you need it. But people will talk, Amanda said, about you having an unmarried pregnant woman living in your house. Let them talk. I am not in the habit of living my life according to other people's opinions. Xavier met her eyes steadily. You will work hard, I will pay you fair wages, and we will both benefit from the arrangement. That is all anyone needs to know. Amanda wanted to ask more, to understand this man who seemed to defy all her expectations. But exhaustion was catching up with her, the long journey finally taking its toll. She swayed slightly, and Xavier stepped forward, his hand catching her elbow. You are worn out, he said. Let me get your trunk and things, and you can rest before supper. I will make something simple tonight. Tomorrow we can talk about how we want to organize things. I should cook, Amanda protested weakly. That is my job. Your job starts tomorrow. Tonight you rest. He guided her firmly to the bed, and Amanda sank down onto it gratefully. The mattress was surprisingly comfortable, filled with what felt like feather ticking. Xavier left and returned several times with her trunk, the box of supplies from the store, and finally a pitcher of water and a basin. There is a privy out back, and we have a bathing room downstairs, if you want to wash up properly later, he said. I will call you when supper is ready. Then he was gone, pulling the door closed behind him, and Amanda was alone in this room that smelled of fresh air and soap. She lay back on the bed, one hand on her swollen belly, and felt the baby move. We made it, she whispered. We are going to be all right. For the first time in months, she almost believed it. She must have dozed off, because the next thing she knew, Xavier was calling up the stairs that supper was ready. Amanda rose, splashed water on her face from the basin, and tried to make herself presentable before heading downstairs. Xavier had set the table with 2 plates and had put out a meal of fried ham, beans, and biscuits that looked surprisingly edible. A pot of coffee sat on the stove, though he had also provided a cup of milk. Figured coffee might not sit well, he said, nodding to the milk. Emily could not stomach it when she was expecting. They sat down across from each other, and Xavier said a brief, simple grace before they began eating. The food was plain but good, and Amanda realized she was famished. She ate with more appetite than she had shown in weeks. Tell me about your sister, Amanda said after a while. If you do not mind. Xavier's expression softened. Emily is 3 years younger than me, came west with me after the war. She is tough as they come had to be. Running a household out here is not easy, and she did it while helping with the ranch work too. When she met Robert, her husband, I was glad for her. He is a good man, treats her right. They have 2 children now, with another on the way. You must miss her. I do. But she is happy, and that matters more. Xavier took a drink of his coffee. What about you? Do you have family back in St. Louis? No, Amanda said quietly. My parents died of cholera when I was 16. I have been on my own since then. That is young to be alone in the world, I managed. I worked at the boarding house, learned to take care of myself. She hesitated, then decided he deserved more honesty. The baby's father was a guest at the boarding house. He was a businessman from Chicago, charming and educated. He said he loved me, said he would marry me. By the time I realized I was pregnant, he had gone back to Chicago. When I wrote to him, I got a letter from his wife. The words came out flat, drained of emotion by repetition. She had told this story to herself so many times that it had lost its power to hurt, or so she tried to believe. Xavier's jaw tightened. He is a coward and a liar. Yes, Amanda met his eyes, but the baby is innocent. I will not let my child pay for my mistakes. It was not your mistake. He is the one who lied. Xavier's voice was hard. You did nothing wrong. The fierce conviction in his words made Amanda's eyes sting again. Most people do not see it that way. Most people are fools. Xavier pushed back from the table and stood, gathering the dishes. You look dead on your feet. Go on up to bed. I will handle the cleanup tonight. Amanda wanted to argue, but she truly was exhausted. Thank you, Xavier. Just Xavier is fine, he said. We are going to be living under the same roof. Might as well dispense with the formalities. Then you should call me Amanda, he nodded. Good night, Amanda. Good night. She climbed the stairs slowly, her body heavy with fatigue and pregnancy. In her new room, she managed to change into her nightgown and fell into bed without even bothering to unpack her trunk. The last thing she thought before sleep claimed her was how strange it was to feel safe for the first time in months. Amanda woke to golden sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of roosters crowing. For a moment, she was disoriented, not recognizing her surroundings. Then memory returned, and she sat up carefully, one hand going to her belly as the baby kicked a good morning. She could hear sounds from downstairs, the clank of the stove and the smell of coffee brewing. Rising, she washed quickly in the cold water from the pitcher and dressed in one of her 2 work dresses, the fabric straining slightly across her middle. She had let out the seams as much as she could, but she was going to need to make some new dresses soon to accommodate her growing belly. When she descended the stairs, she found Xavier already up and moving, dressed for work. He glanced up as she entered the kitchen. Morning, I hope you slept well. I did, thank you. Amanda tied on an apron she found hanging by the door. I can take over breakfast. I am nearly done, but you can handle it from here on out. Xavier gestured to the pantry. I usually eat pretty simple. Eggs, bacon, biscuits, that sort of thing. Dinner is the main meal. I come in around midday unless we are working far range. What about your ranch hands? They have their own cook in the bunkhouse. Old Charlie handles their meals. You will just be cooking for the 2 of us, mostly. He poured coffee into a cup. 3 of the hands are out at the line shack with the herd, like I mentioned. The other 3 are here doing maintenance work. You will meet them eventually, but they keep to themselves mostly. Amanda nodded, taking in this information. She moved to the stove and began cooking eggs while Xavier sat down with his coffee. It felt strange to be performing such domestic tasks for a man she barely knew, yet there was something comfortable about it too. The kitchen was well organized, and she quickly found what she needed. They ate together in companionable silence. After breakfast, Xavier headed out to work, and Amanda began the process of learning her new domain. She started with the kitchen, taking inventory of supplies and familiarizing herself with where everything was kept. Then she moved through the house, assessing what needed to be done. It was clear that Xavier had been doing his best to keep things clean, but there was a layer of neglect that came from a lone man trying to manage a ranch and a house. The floors needed a good scrubbing, the windows could use washing, and every horizontal surface had a fine coating of dust. It was nothing terrible, just the accumulation of too much to do and not enough time to do it all. Amanda started with the main room, working slowly to accommodate her pregnancy. She swept and then scrubbed the floor, washed the windows until they gleamed, and polished the furniture. By midday, she was pleasantly tired and satisfied with her progress. She started on dinner, making a beef stew with vegetables from the root cellar and fresh biscuits. Xavier came in exactly at noon, as if he had an internal clock. He stopped in the doorway, surveying the transformed main room. "You have been working," he observed. "That is what you are paying me for," Amanda said with a slight smile. "Dinner will be ready in 10 minutes. They fell into a routine over the following days. Xavier worked from dawn until dusk, managing his cattle operation with the help of his men. Amanda kept house, cooked meals, and gradually worked her way through the various cleaning and maintenance tasks that had been neglected. She found satisfaction in the work, in bringing order and comfort to the solid house Xavier had built. In the evenings, they often sat together on the porch, watching the sun set behind the mountains. Xavier was not a particularly talkative man, but Amanda found his quiet presence soothing. Sometimes he would tell her about the ranch, about the challenges of managing cattle in this climate, about his plans for the future. Other times they sat in comfortable silence. A week after her arrival, Amanda met the ranch hands who were working near the house. There was Tom, a weathered cowboy in his 40s who tipped his hat politely and minded his own business. Jake and Ben were younger, in their 20s, both friendly enough but clearly uncertain how to interact with a pregnant woman. They kept their distance, which suited Amanda fine. The old cook, Charlie, was more welcoming. He came by the main house one afternoon with a basket of early apples from a tree by the bunkhouse. "Thought you might like these," he said, his lined face creasing in a smile. "Xavier mentioned you could bake, and these make fine pies." "Thank you," Amanda said warmly. "Would you like some coffee?" Charlie accepted, and they sat at the kitchen table while he regaled her with stories of the early days of the ranch. He had been with Xavier from nearly the beginning, he told her, and he clearly had great respect for his employer. "He is a fair man," Charlie said. "Works harder than anyone, never asks more of us than he would do himself. This ranch would not be what it is without his grit." "He seems dedicated," Amanda agreed. "Lost a lot in the war, like many did, but he came out here and built something new. Takes a special kind of person to do that." Charlie finished his coffee and stood. "Well, I had better get back. Those boys will be wanting their supper soon. Nice to meet you proper, Miss Amanda." After he left, Amanda made 2 apple pies, one for the main house and one to send over to the bunkhouse. When Xavier came in for supper and saw the pie cooling on the counter, his eyes lit up in a way she had not seen before. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked. "Apple pie." "Charlie brought me apples." "Emily used to make apple pie," Xavier said softly. "I have not had it in 2 years." That evening, after they had both eaten generous slices, Xavier sat back with a satisfied sigh. "That was excellent, thank you. You are welcome." Amanda poured him more coffee. It is nice to have a real kitchen to work in again. The boarding house kitchen was always chaos. "You miss St. Louis at all?" Amanda considered the question. "I miss some things. The conveniences of a city, the variety of goods in the shops. But I do not miss feeling like I was constantly being judged, constantly falling short of what I should be. Here, I can just work and live." "That is what I came west for too," Xavier said. "The freedom to make something of myself without everyone telling me who I was supposed to be." They were gradually learning each other, Amanda realized. Learning the contours of each other's past, the shape of each other's dreams. It was a slow process, built on these quiet evening conversations and the mundane intimacy of shared meals and shared space. As July melted into August, Amanda felt herself settling into the rhythm of ranch life. Her belly continued to grow, and the baby became more active, often moving visibly beneath her dress. Xavier noticed, she could tell, but he never commented directly. Instead, he showed his awareness in small ways, appearing at her elbow with a chair when she had been on her feet too long, or taking over the heavier chores without being asked. One evening in mid-August, Amanda was gathering eggs from the chicken coop when she heard the sound of approaching horses. She looked up to see 3 riders coming up the track from town. Xavier emerged from the barn and walked out to meet them, his posture relaxed but alert. The lead rider was a heavy-set man in his 50s, well-dressed by local standards. He dismounted with the confidence of someone used to being important. The 2 men with him looked like hired help. "Vaughn," the man said by way of greeting. "Mr. Harrison," Xavier replied, his tone neutral. "I heard you hired yourself a housekeeper, came by to see if it is true." Amanda felt a chill despite the warm evening. She set down her basket of eggs and walked toward the house, not wanting to be the subject of gossip. But Xavier called out to her, "Amanda, come here a moment." She approached reluctantly, very aware of her obvious pregnancy and the assessing look in Harrison's eyes. "Amanda, this is Gerald Harrison. He owns the ranch to our east. Harrison, this is Miss Amanda Vaughn, my housekeeper." "Vaughn," Harrison's eyebrows rose. "Family." "No," Xavier said flatly. "Same last name by coincidence. She came out from St. Louis to take the position." Harrison's gaze dropped to Amanda's belly and his lips thinned in disapproval. "I see. Well, that is your business, I suppose, though you might consider how this looks, Vaughn." "I do not particularly care how it looks," Xavier said, his voice taking on an edge. "Miss Vaughn works for me. Her personal situation is none of your concern or anyone else's. People will talk. Let them." Xavier took a step forward. "Was there something you needed, Harrison? Or did you ride out here just to share your opinions on my household arrangements?" Harrison's face reddened. "Just thought you should know that respectable folks are going to have concerns about this situation. Then respectable folks can keep their concerns to themselves and off my property." Xavier's tone was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. "Have a good evening, Harrison." It was a dismissal, clear as day. Harrison remounted with poor grace and rode off with his men. Amanda stood frozen, mortified and angry in equal measure. "I am sorry," she said once they were gone. "I did not mean to cause problems for you." "You did not cause anything," Xavier said firmly. "Harrison is a pompous fool who likes to throw his weight around. I have never liked him, and I care even less about his opinion now. But if people talk, it could hurt your business relationships." Xavier turned to face her fully. "Amanda, listen to me. I meant what I said when you arrived. I do not live my life by other people's rules. You are here to work, you work hard, and that is all that matters. Anyone who has a problem with that can take their business elsewhere." His conviction warmed something deep inside her chest. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Do not thank me for basic decency." Xavier's expression softened. "Now, let us get those eggs inside before they cook in this heat." But Harrison's visit cast a shadow over the following days. When Amanda went into town with Xavier the next Saturday for supplies, she felt the weight of curious and judgmental stares. Women whispered behind their hands. Men looked at her belly, and then at Xavier with expressions that ranged from puzzlement to disapproval. In the general store, Thomas Garrett was as friendly as always, but his wife, who was helping that day, was coolly distant. As Xavier loaded supplies into the wagon, Amanda overheard 2 women talking in the fabric section. Living right there in his house, and her pregnant with another man's child. It is scandalous. Maybe the child is his and they are just keeping up appearances. Either way, it is not right. A decent woman would not put herself in that position. Amanda's face burned, but she kept her head high and finished her shopping. In the wagon on the way back to the ranch, she was quiet, staring at the passing landscape without really seeing it. "Do not let them get to you," Xavier said after a while. "Easy for you to say. You are not the one they are calling indecent. They are calling me worse, trust me. Men like Harrison are probably saying I am taking advantage of a desperate woman, or that I am a fool for taking on another man's responsibility." He glanced at her. "None of it matters. It matters to me." Amanda's voice was tight. "I have been judged and found wanting everywhere I go. I thought maybe here it would be different. Give them time. Once they see you are here to stay, they will move on to the next thing to gossip about. That is how small towns work." Amanda wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. She had faced this kind of judgment in St. Louis, and it had only grown worse as her pregnancy progressed. She did not know if she had the strength to face it again. That night, she lay awake in her room, one hand on her restless baby, and wondered if she had made a terrible mistake coming here. Maybe she should move on before she caused more problems for Xavier. He had been nothing but kind to her, and she was repaying that kindness by making him the subject of nasty gossip. The next morning, she was up early, starting breakfast with determination. When Xavier came in, she had made a full spread: eggs, bacon, biscuits with gravy, and strong coffee. "You did not have to go to all this trouble," he said, but he looked pleased. "I want to earn my keep," Amanda said. "I know this situation is causing problems for you, and I want you to know I appreciate everything you have done." Xavier studied her for a long moment. "You are thinking about leaving." It was not a question. Amanda busied herself with pouring coffee. "I do not want to be a burden." "You are not a burden. You are the best thing that has happened to this house in 2 years. Xavier sat down and waited until she looked at him. "Amanda, I want you here. Not because I need a housekeeper, though you are excellent at that, but because this house is big and lonely, and having you here makes it feel like a home again. And if I am being completely honest, I like your company." Amanda's heart skipped. "You do?" "Yes. You are smart and hardworking, and you do not waste words on nonsense. I enjoy our evening conversations, and I like having someone to share meals with." He paused. "I hope you like being here too, or at least that you might come to like it if you give it a chance." "I do like it here," Amanda admitted. "I like the work and the house and the mountains, and I like your company too. I just do not want to make your life harder." "My life is better with you in it," Xavier said simply. "Stay, please." The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. Amanda felt something shift in her chest, a wall beginning to crack. "All right, I will stay." Xavier's smile was like sunrise. "Good. Now let us eat this fine breakfast before it gets cold." After that conversation, things felt different between them. The ease was still there, but underneath, it ran a new current of awareness. Amanda found herself noticing details about Xavier she had not paid attention to before. The way his hands were gentle despite their strength, the quiet competence with which he approached every task, the laugh lines around his eyes that appeared when he was truly amused. As August waned and September arrived, bringing cooler nights and the first hint of autumn color to the aspens on the mountain slopes, Amanda's pregnancy advanced into the final trimester. She was large now, her belly prominent and the baby's movements sometimes visible through her dress. Simple tasks became more difficult, and she grew frustrated with her body's limitations. Xavier adapted without being asked. He took over the heavier household chores, hauling water and firewood without comment. When Amanda struggled to reach something on a high shelf, he appeared at her elbow to get it down. He brought the cradle down from the attic and set it up in her room, and one afternoon she found him sanding it smooth and applying a fresh coat of varnish. "You did not have to do that," she said, touched by the gesture. "Want it to be nice for the baby," Xavier said, focused on his work. "Emily's oldest was born in this cradle, and her second too. Seems right that your little one should have it in good condition." Amanda watched him work, his hands moving with practiced skill over the wood. "You will be a good father someday." Xavier's hands stilled for a moment. "Maybe," he said quietly, "never found the right woman to build that life with." "You have time," Amanda said. "You are still young." 33 this past spring. Not that young anymore. He resumed his work. "But I suppose if the right person came along, age would not matter much." There was something in his tone that made Amanda's pulse quicken, but she did not pursue it. The boundaries of their relationship were clear. Employer and employee, nothing more. She could not afford to read meaning into kindness or hope for something that could never be. But as the days passed, she found it increasingly difficult to ignore the way her heart lifted when Xavier came in from work, or the contentment she felt during their evening conversations. She told herself it was just gratitude, just the natural response to being treated with respect and care after so many months of judgment. It could not be anything more. One evening in late September, Amanda was washing dishes when she felt an odd twinge low in her belly. She paused, one hand going to her stomach, waiting to see if it would repeat. When nothing else happened, she dismissed it and continued working. Xavier was at the table, going over ranch accounts by lamplight. It was a companionable scene, domestic and peaceful. Amanda found herself imagining what it would be like if this were truly her home, if she and Xavier were truly a family rather than just employer and employee sharing space. The thought was dangerous, and she pushed it away. She had learned the hard way what happened when you built dreams on unstable foundations. "You are quiet tonight," Xavier observed, looking up from his ledger. "Just thinking," Amanda said. "About the future. The baby will be here in less than 2 months. I need to start making more definite plans." Xavier set down his pencil. "What kind of plans?" "Practical ones. I will need to take some time after the birth to recover and care for the baby. I know that will affect my work, and we should discuss how to handle that." "We will figure it out," Xavier said. "You will do what you need to do and we will adjust. It is not complicated. But I should still be earning my keep." "Amanda." Xavier stood and came over to where she was standing at the wash basin. "You are earning your keep every single day. When you need to focus on the baby, you will do that, and the house will survive. We will work it out together." He was close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. The lamplight cast shadows across his face, making the planes and angles more pronounced. "Why are you so good to me?" Amanda whispered. "I am nothing to you, just a stranger you took a chance on." "You are not nothing," Xavier said, his voice rough. "You have not been nothing since the day you arrived." The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Amanda's heart pounded in her chest. For a moment, she thought Xavier might reach for her, might close the small distance between them. She did not know if she wanted him to or if she would pull away if he did. But then he stepped back, breaking the moment. "It is late. You should get some rest." Amanda nodded, not trusting her voice. She dried her hands and headed for the stairs, feeling Xavier's eyes on her as she climbed. In her room, she pressed her hands to her burning cheeks and tried to calm her racing heart. She could not afford to fall for Xavier Vaughn. She was pregnant with another man's child, dependent on his charity, vulnerable in every way. Whatever kindness he showed her was just that, kindness. It would be foolish to mistake it for something more. But as she lay in bed, feeling her baby move beneath her hands, She could not help but wish that things were different, that she had met Xavier before everything went wrong in St. Louis, that this child was his, that she had the right to care for him the way her heart was beginning to want to. "Stop it," she told herself firmly. "You are being ridiculous." But her heart did not listen. The next morning, Amanda resolved to be more careful with her emotions. She would keep things professional, maintain the appropriate distance between employer and employee. It was the only sensible course, but Xavier made it difficult without meaning to. He continued to be kind, continued to treat her with a respect and consideration that wore down her defenses. When she struggled with her boots one morning, swollen feet making them hard to get on, he knelt and helped her without a word, his hands gentle and impersonal. When she grew weary in the afternoons, he insisted she rest, bringing her a cup of tea and a book from his modest collection. The ranch hands grew accustomed to her presence and gradually became more comfortable. Tom would tip his hat and exchange pleasantries when he saw her. Jake brought her wildflowers one day, saying his mother had always liked having them in the house. Even Ben, the shyest of the three, started greeting her by name. Charlie became a regular visitor to the main house, often stopping by in the afternoon to share coffee and conversation. He clearly approved of Amanda's presence and was not shy about saying so. "This place feels right again," he told Xavier one day when he did not realize Amanda could hear. "Like a home instead of just a house. You should think about making it permanent." "Charlie, mind your own business," Xavier replied, but there was no heat in it. "I am just saying, you are not getting any younger and she is a good woman. Baby or no baby, a man could do worse." Amanda retreated before she could hear Xavier's response, her face hot. The old cook meant well, but his words only made things more complicated. October arrived with frost on the ground, and the certainty that winter was coming. Xavier and his men spent long days preparing for the cold months ahead, moving cattle to winter pastures and stockpiling supplies. Amanda busied herself with her own preparations, sewing baby clothes from fabric Xavier had bought without her asking, and making sure the house was ready for the winter. Her body grew heavier, more unwieldy. The baby seemed to have run out of room and was constantly moving, little feet and hands pressing against her ribs and belly. She slept poorly, unable to find a comfortable position for more than a few minutes at a time. One afternoon in mid-October, she was taking down curtains to wash when the ladder wobbled beneath her. She gasped, grabbing for the window frame, and suddenly Xavier was there, hands steadying the ladder and then reaching up to help her down. "What are you doing up there?" he demanded, and for the first time since she had known him, he sounded angry. "You could have fallen." "I was being careful," Amanda protested. "Careful is not enough when you are 8 months pregnant." Xavier's jaw was tight. "If you had fallen and hurt yourself or the baby, do you have any idea how long it would take to get a doctor out here?" "I did not think about that," Amanda admitted, shaken by the near miss and by Xavier's obvious fear. "No more climbing, no more heavy lifting. If something needs to be done that you cannot safely do, you tell me and I will handle it." Xavier's hands were still on her arms, his grip firm but not harsh. "Promise me." "I promise," Amanda said quietly. "I am sorry, I did not mean to worry you." Xavier's expression softened. He released her arms but did not step back. "I know you are used to taking care of yourself, but you do not have to do it alone anymore. I am here. Let me help." "You already help so much," Amanda said. "More than anyone ever has." "Then let me help more." Xavier lifted one hand and very gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, intimate, and it made Amanda's breath catch. "You matter to me, Amanda. You and the baby both. I need you to be safe." "We will be," Amanda whispered. "I will be more careful." They stood there for a long moment, close together in the afternoon light streaming through the window. Amanda could see the concern in Xavier's eyes, the fear that something might happen to her. But underneath that, she thought she saw something else, something warmer and deeper that made her pulse race. Then the baby kicked hard, hard enough that it was visible through her dress, and the moment broke. Xavier's eyes dropped to her belly, and a slow smile crossed his face. "That is quite a kick," he said. "The baby is very active lately. I think there is a real fighter in there." "Takes after the mother, then," Xavier said, and the pride in his voice made Amanda's throat tighten. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and red, Amanda felt a shift in her heart, a wall finally crumbling. She could not keep lying to herself. She was falling in love with Xavier Vaughn, had been falling for weeks now without admitting it. It was impractical and dangerous and probably foolish, but it was also true. She loved his quiet strength, his steadfast kindness, the way he made her feel safe and valued. She loved the life he had built here, the care he showed for his land and his animals and his people. She loved the man he was, honest and hardworking and decent to his core. But loving him did not change her circumstances. She was still pregnant with another man's child, still dependent on Xavier's charity, still in no position to offer him anything but complications. The best thing she could do was keep her feelings to herself and be grateful for what she had. A home, a job, and a friend, even if her heart wanted so much more. The first snow fell in early November, a light dusting that melted by midday but signaled the true beginning of winter. Amanda watched from the kitchen window as Xavier and the hands worked to secure everything against the coming cold. Her back ached constantly now, and she felt huge and ungainly. The baby had dropped lower in her belly, making breathing easier but walking more difficult. Dr. Lewis, the physician from Green River, had visited twice at Xavier's insistence to check on Amanda's condition. He was a practical man in his 60s who treated Amanda with professional courtesy and no judgment. "Everything looks normal," he told her at his last visit in early November. "The baby has a strong heartbeat and you seem healthy. Could be any time in the next few weeks, but most likely you will go to the end of the month or into December. First babies often take their time." "I will send word when her time comes," Xavier said. "How long will it take you to get here?" "Depends on the weather. If the roads are clear, 2 hours or so. If we get a bad storm, it could be longer." Dr. Lewis looked at Amanda. "Do you have someone who can stay with you when labor starts? It can take many hours, especially the first time." "I will be here," Xavier said before Amanda could answer. "Whatever she needs." Dr. Lewis nodded approval. "Good. Make sure you have plenty of clean linens, hot water ready, and a warm place for the baby once it arrives. I will come as soon as I get word." After he left, Amanda felt a flutter of nervousness. The baby's arrival had been abstract before, something in the future. Now it felt real and imminent, and she was suddenly aware of how isolated they were out here. What if something went wrong? What if the doctor could not get there in time? "Stop worrying," Xavier said, reading her expression with uncanny accuracy. "Women have been having babies in remote places since the beginning of time. You are strong and I will be here with you. We will manage." "You should not have to be there," Amanda said. "It is not proper." "I do not give a damn about proper. You think I am going to sit downstairs or ride into town while you are going through that alone?" Xavier's expression was fierce. "That is not happening. I will be there and we will get through it together." His certainty was comforting, even as it made Amanda's feelings for him deepen impossibly further. How had she gotten so lucky as to end up here, with this man who treated her as if she mattered, as if she were precious? "Thank you," she said softly. November crept forward, cold and gray. More snow fell, accumulating this time, covering the ranch in white. The cattle had been brought in close to the buildings, and the men spent their days feeding and checking on them. Amanda kept the house warm and comfortable, cooking hearty meals and keeping the fires burning. Her body felt strange, restless, and uncomfortable. The baby moved less frequently but more forcefully, as if preparing for the journey ahead. She had everything ready. Baby clothes washed and folded, the cradle lined with soft blankets, clean linen stored within easy reach. On a cold afternoon in late November, 3 weeks before her calculated due date, Amanda felt the first unmistakable contraction. She was kneading bread dough when it hit, a tightening across her belly that took her breath away. She stopped, hands pressed to the counter, and waited for it to pass. It could be false labor, she told herself. Dr. Lewis had warned her about that. She continued working, but over the next hour the contractions came again, gradually becoming more regular. Xavier came in for the midday meal and took one look at her face. "It is starting, is it not?" "I think so," Amanda admitted, "but it could be false labor, or it could be real." Xavier's expression was calm, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "Let me get Tom to ride for the doctor. How far apart are the contractions?" "Maybe 20 minutes or so." "All right." "That gives us time." Xavier moved with swift efficiency, calling Tom and giving him instructions, then coming back to Amanda. "What do you need me to do?" "Help me upstairs," Amanda said. Another contraction was building, and suddenly the idea of going through this anywhere but her own room was unbearable. Xavier supported her up the stairs and helped her settle into bed. She had already put old linens down, prepared for this moment. As the afternoon wore on, the contractions grew stronger and closer together. Xavier stayed with her, holding her hand through the worst of them, offering water and quiet encouragement. "Where is that doctor?" Amanda gasped as a particularly brutal contraction seized her. "Tom will have reached town by now. Dr. Lewis will be on his way." Xavier wiped her forehead with a cool cloth. "You are doing so well, just keep breathing." The light outside faded to twilight, then full darkness. Still no doctor. The contractions were coming every 5 minutes now, each one a wave of pain that left Amanda shaking and exhausted. Xavier never left her side, steady as a rock, his presence the only thing keeping her from panic. "I cannot do this," Amanda whimpered during a brief respite. "It hurts too much." "Yes, you can. You are the strongest person I know." Xavier's hand squeezed hers. "And you are not alone. I am right here and I am not going anywhere." Another contraction hit, worse than before, and Amanda cried out. Through the pain, she felt Xavier's arms around her, supporting her, his voice in her ear telling her she could do this, that she was amazing, that he was so proud of her. Time lost meaning. There was only the pain and Xavier's voice and the desperate need to bring this baby into the world. At some point, she heard new voices, the doctor arriving, but Xavier stayed with her, holding her hand, anchoring her to the world. "All right, Amanda, the baby is almost here," Dr. Lewis said from the foot of the bed. "On the next contraction, I need you to push." Amanda pushed, drawing on reserves of strength she did not know she possessed. Xavier's hand was white-knuckled in hers, but his voice remained calm and encouraging. "That is it. You are doing it, just a little more," the doctor coached. One more push, a tremendous effort that felt like it took everything she had, and suddenly there was a release, and the sound of a baby crying filled the room. "It is a boy," Dr. Lewis announced. "A healthy boy with a good, strong cry." Amanda collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. Xavier was grinning, his eyes bright with moisture. "You did it," he said. "He is here and he is perfect." Dr. Lewis cleaned the baby and wrapped him in a blanket, then placed him in Amanda's arms. She looked down at her son, his tiny face red and scrunched, his small hands waving in the air, and felt love crash over her like a wave. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I am your mama." Xavier leaned over to look at the baby, and his expression was filled with wonder. "He is beautiful, Amanda, absolutely beautiful." "Would you like to hold him?" Amanda asked impulsively. Xavier looked startled, then carefully took the baby into his arms. He held the infant with surprising confidence, supporting the small head and gazing down at him with such tenderness that Amanda's heart turned over. "Hello there," Xavier said softly. "Welcome to the world, little man." The baby quieted at the sound of his voice, seeming to focus on Xavier's face. Something passed between them, some wordless connection, and Amanda saw Xavier's expression shift into something deep and permanent. "That baby will be mine too," Xavier said quietly, as if making a vow. He looked up at Amanda, his eyes fierce and certain. "If you will let me. I know he is not mine by blood, but I want to be his father. I want to raise him and teach him and watch him grow. I want that more than anything." Amanda's tears flowed harder. "Xavier, you do not have to do that." "I know I do not have to, I want to." Xavier looked back down at the baby. "I have fallen in love with you, Amanda. Somewhere over these months, you became the most important person in my world. And this little one, he is part of you, which makes him part of my heart too. I want us to be a family, all three of us. I want to marry you if you will have me, and give this boy my name and my protection and all the love I have." Amanda could barely breathe through the emotion flooding her chest. "You love me. So much it scares me," Xavier admitted, his eyes meeting hers over the baby's head. "I never thought I would feel this way about anyone, but you walked into my life and changed everything. You made this house a home. You made me remember what it feels like to want a future with someone. I love you, Amanda. I love everything about you." "I love you too," Amanda whispered. "I've been trying not to, trying to be sensible, but I love you so much." Xavier's smile was radiant. He carefully handed the baby back to Amanda, then leaned down and kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. "Is that a yes, then? You will marry me?" "Yes," Amanda said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Dr. Lewis cleared his throat discreetly from where he was packing up his supplies. "Well, that is the best birth I have ever attended. Congratulations to both of you." He smiled at them kindly. "I will see myself out and let you three get acquainted. Send for me if you need anything, but everything looks good. Mother and baby are both healthy." After he left, Xavier settled carefully on the edge of the bed next to Amanda and the baby. They sat together, the three of them, in the golden glow of the lamplight, and Amanda felt a peace she had never known before. "Have you thought of a name?" Xavier asked, one finger gently stroking the baby's impossibly soft cheek. "I was thinking James," Amanda said. "But I want his middle name to be Xavier. James Xavier Vaughn, if you approve." Xavier's eyes went bright with tears. "I approve very much." He kissed her forehead. "I am going to do everything I can to be worthy of you both." "You already are," Amanda said softly. "You have been from the beginning." They married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the small church in Green River. Amanda wore a new dress that Xavier had ordered from the catalog, soft blue wool that brought out her eyes. She carried wildflowers that Charlie had somehow found despite the winter cold. Tom, Jake, and Ben stood as witnesses, all of them grinning like fools. Baby James, wrapped in warm blankets, slept through the entire ceremony in Charlie's arms. If the townspeople were scandalized by the speed of the wedding or the presence of the infant, they kept it to themselves in the face of Xavier's clear happiness and the gentle way he looked at his new wife. Even Gerald Harrison, seeing them in town a few weeks later, could only tip his hat in grudging acknowledgement. The winter that followed was the happiest of Amanda's life. She and Xavier settled into married life with an ease that felt natural, as if they had been together for years rather than months. Xavier was a devoted husband, attentive and affectionate, and he was besotted with James. He would spend hours holding the baby in the evenings, talking to him in a low voice, or gently rocking the cradle when James fussed at night. "You are spoiling him," Amanda teased one night, watching Xavier pace the floor with the baby. "He is not even 3 months old." "You cannot spoil a baby that young," Xavier replied. "Besides, I like holding him. He fits right here against my shoulder." Amanda's heart swelled with love for this man who had claimed her son as his own without hesitation. James would never know any father but Xavier, and that was exactly as it should be. Spring came eventually, melting the snow and bringing green back to the grasslands. The ranch work picked up, demanding more of Xavier's time, but he always made sure to be home for supper and to spend time with Amanda and James before bed. One evening in May, as they sat on the porch watching James play on a blanket with wooden toys Xavier had carved, Amanda rested her head on Xavier's shoulder. "I am pregnant again," she said quietly. Xavier went still, then pulled back to look at her face. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "About 6 weeks along, I think." Amanda searched his face for his reaction. "I know James is still so young, but I am happy about it. Is that all right?" "All right." Xavier's face broke into a huge smile. "Amanda, it is wonderful. Another baby, our baby this time." He pulled her close and kissed her soundly. "When?" "Late December or early January, I think." Xavier glanced at James, then back at Amanda, his expression filled with joy and wonder. "I am the luckiest man alive. You know that, do not you?" "I think we are both pretty lucky," Amanda said, smiling. "No, I am luckier. I get to have you and James and now another baby. I get to wake up every morning in a house full of life and love. I get to build a future with you." Xavier cupped her face in his hands. "You are my whole world, Amanda Vaughn. You and our children." "And you are ours," Amanda whispered. They sat together as the sun set, James babbling happily on his blanket, and Amanda thought about the long journey that had brought her here. All the pain and fear and uncertainty had led to this moment, to this man, to this family. She would not change a single step of it, because every step had been necessary to bring her home. The second baby, a girl they named Sarah Emily after Xavier's sister, arrived in January of 1880 during a snowstorm. This birth was easier, faster, and Xavier was right there with Amanda again, holding her hand and coaching her through it. When Sarah was placed in her arms, tiny and pink and perfect, James toddled over on unsteady legs to peer at his new sister. "Baby," James said solemnly, patting Sarah's blanket with a chubby hand. "Yes, that is your baby sister," Xavier said, scooping James up so he could see better. "You are a big brother now. That means you have to help take care of her." James considered this seriously, then nodded. "Take care." Amanda watched her husband with their children, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. Xavier caught her looking and smiled at her, that special smile he reserved just for her, the one that said she was his everything. Life on the ranch continued, seasons turning in their endless cycle. James grew into a bright, energetic boy who followed Xavier everywhere, desperate to help with ranch work. Sarah was quieter, more thoughtful, but with a stubborn streak that made Xavier laugh and say she took after her mother. In the spring of 1882, Amanda gave birth to another son, Thomas, named for the loyal ranch hand who had become a friend. And in 1884, another daughter, Grace, completed their family. The house that had once been too big and too quiet for one lonely rancher was now constantly full of life. Children's laughter echoed through the rooms. Toys were scattered on the floor. The kitchen always smelled of fresh bread or cookies, or whatever Amanda was cooking for her growing family. Xavier expanded the ranch over the years, building it into one of the most successful operations in Wyoming. But no matter how busy he was, he always made time for his family. He taught James to ride and rope, read stories to Sarah, played blocks with Thomas, and carried Grace on his shoulders as he did his evening rounds. On a summer evening in 1886, Amanda stood on the porch watching her family. Xavier was in the yard with all 4 children, teaching James and Sarah how to properly care for a horse while Thomas sat in the dirt playing, and Grace napped in a basket at Amanda's feet. The setting sun painted everything in gold, and Amanda felt a profound sense of contentment. 8 years since she had arrived in Green River, pregnant and desperate and alone. 8 years since Xavier had looked at her situation, and said yes anyway. 8 years of building a life together, of love growing deeper with every passing day. Xavier looked up from what he was doing and caught her watching. His face softened, and he smiled at her across the distance. Even now, after years of marriage, that smile still made her heart flutter. He said something to the older children and headed toward the porch, climbing the steps to stand beside her. His arm came around her waist, pulling her close. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is from what I imagined," Amanda said. "When I got on that stagecoach in St. Louis, I was just hoping to survive, to find a place where my baby and I could exist. I never dreamed I would find this. A real home, a family, a man who loves me the way you do." "I am the one who got lucky," Xavier said. "You and James showing up changed my whole life, gave me a reason to build something bigger than just a ranch, gave me a future worth working toward. We made a good life together," Amanda said, leaning into him. "The best life." Xavier kissed the top of her head. "And it just keeps getting better." Grace woke up in her basket and started fussing. Xavier bent and picked her up, settling her against his shoulder with the practiced ease of an experienced father. "There is my girl," he murmured. "Did you have a good nap?" James came running up to the porch. "Papa, can we go riding tomorrow? Please." At 8 years old, James looked remarkably like Xavier, with the same dark hair and blue-gray eyes. But he had Amanda's smile and her determination. He still did not know that Xavier was not his biological father, and Amanda and Xavier had decided long ago that there was no need to ever tell him. Xavier was his father in every way that mattered, and that was all the truth James needed. "We will see," Xavier said. "Depends on how much work we get done in the morning." "I will work really hard, I promise," James declared, already racing back to tell his siblings. Amanda laughed. "He adores you, you know. The feeling is mutual. They are all amazing kids, Amanda. We did good." "Yes," Amanda agreed, watching their children play in the golden evening light. "We did very good." That night, after the children were all tucked into bed and the house was quiet, Amanda and Xavier sat together on the porch as they had done countless times before. The mountains rose black against the star-filled sky, and the air was sweet with the scent of summer grass. "You ever regret it?" Amanda asked quietly. "Taking me in, taking on James, building this life?" Xavier turned to look at her, his expression serious in the moonlight. "Never. Not for a single moment. You and the children are the best thing that ever happened to me. Every day I wake up grateful that you answered my advertisement, that you trusted me enough to come here, that you gave me a chance to love you." "I am grateful too," Amanda said softly, "for everything. For your kindness when I needed it most, for the way you loved James as your own from the start, for the family we have built together. You saved me, Xavier." "No," Xavier said, pulling her close. "We saved each other." I was just existing before you came, going through the motions of life but not really living. You made me whole again. You gave me purpose and joy and a reason to believe in tomorrow." Amanda tilted her face up, and Xavier kissed her, tender and sweet and full of all the love they had built over the years. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her head on his shoulder and looked out at the land that had become her home. "I love you," she whispered. "More than I can ever put into words." "I love you too," Xavier replied, his arms tightening around her. "Today, tomorrow, and all the days after that, always." They sat together under the stars, listening to the peaceful sounds of the ranch at night, secure in their love and in the life they had created. Amanda thought about that frightened woman who had arrived on a stagecoach 8 years ago, pregnant and alone and hoping just to survive. She wished she could go back and tell that woman not to be afraid, that everything was going to work out better than she could ever imagine. That she would find love and home and family in the arms of a rancher who would look at her baby and say, "That baby will be mine too," and mean it with his whole heart. The years continued to pass, marked by the rhythms of ranch life and family milestones. James grew into a capable young man who worked alongside Xavier, learning everything about managing the ranch. Sarah developed a talent for training horses that surprised everyone. Thomas showed an aptitude for numbers and helped Xavier with the business side of the operation. Grace, the youngest, was still finding her way, but showed signs of inheriting both her mother's kindness and her father's determination. When James turned 16 in 1894, Xavier officially made him a partner in the ranch, drawing up papers that ensured the operation would pass to all 4 children equally. Tom, now graying and slower but still working, had witnessed the signing with tears in his eyes. "Remember when you were just a tiny baby and Xavier held you for the first time?" Tom said to James. "I was there. I saw the moment he claimed you as his son. Now look at you, all grown up and running this ranch alongside him." James looked at Xavier with pure admiration. "Papa taught me everything I know. This ranch is what it is because of him." "It is what it is because of all of us," Xavier corrected. "Your mother, your siblings, the men who work here. We are all family and we all make this place work." It was true. The Vaughn Ranch had become known throughout Wyoming for its quality cattle and horses, but also for the way it was run. Xavier treated his workers fairly, paid good wages, and fostered a sense of community that made people want to stay. Several of the hands had been with him for more than a decade, and Charlie, now well into his 70s, still cooked for the bunkhouse crew with the help of Jake, who had discovered his own talent for cooking. In the fall of 1895, Emily and her husband Robert came to visit, bringing their 5 children. It was a joyful chaos of cousins getting to know each other, and Emily and Amanda became fast friends. "I cannot thank you enough," Emily said to Amanda one afternoon while they watched the children play, "for making Xavier happy. He was so alone after I moved away. I worried about him constantly. Then you came along and gave him everything he needed." "He gave me everything I needed too," Amanda replied. "I arrived here with nothing but a baby and hope. He gave us a home and a family and more love than I ever dreamed possible." Emily squeezed her hand. "He is a good man, my brother, but you made him a better one. You gave him a reason to build something lasting." "We built it together," Amanda said. "That is what marriage is supposed to be, I think. 2 people creating something neither could make alone." That evening, with both families gathered around the large dining table Xavier had built to accommodate their growing household, Amanda looked at all the faces illuminated by lamplight and felt overwhelming gratitude. Her children, healthy and happy. Xavier at the head of the table, laughing at something Robert said. Emily and her family, showing her children where their father had grown up. Tom and Charlie, honorary grandparents to all the Vaughn children. This was what family was supposed to be. After everyone had gone to bed, Amanda found Xavier on the porch. She slipped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. "Happy?" she asked. "Beyond measure," Xavier replied, turning to pull her into his arms. "You?" "So happy I can barely stand it sometimes," Amanda admitted. "I look at our life, our children, everything we have built, and I cannot quite believe it is real." "It is real," Xavier assured her, "and it is ours forever." They stood together in the cool autumn night, holding each other close, secure in the love that had grown from desperate circumstances into something beautiful and lasting. The new century arrived with celebration and hope. James, now 22, had married a local girl named Catherine, and they were building a house on the eastern section of the ranch. Sarah, at 20, was courting a young man from a neighboring ranch, though she had made it clear she would not marry anyone who did not understand that she would continue training horses. Thomas, at 18, was considering attending university in Cheyenne to study business, with the plan to bring his knowledge back to help expand the ranch further. And Grace, at 16, was becoming a talented artist, filling sketchbooks with drawings of ranch life. Xavier and Amanda, now in their 50s, were looking forward to becoming grandparents. Catherine was expecting, and the entire family was excited about the new baby. "Our first grandchild," Amanda said one evening, knitting tiny socks in preparation. "Can you believe it?" "I can barely believe our oldest is married, much less having a baby of his own," Xavier replied. "Time moves too fast." "Not fast enough when we were young and struggling," Amanda pointed out. "Remember those first years? When money was tight and winters were hard and we were just trying to keep everything together." "I remember you being amazing through all of it," Xavier said. "Never complaining, always finding ways to make things work. Teaching the children, keeping the house running, supporting me when things got difficult. You are the strongest person I know, Amanda." "I had to be strong. I had you and the children depending on me." Amanda set down her knitting and moved to sit beside Xavier. "But you made it easier. Knowing you were beside me, that we were facing everything together, that made all the difference." Xavier put his arm around her, and they sat in comfortable silence for a while. They had worn this groove in their relationship over the years, this easy companionship that required no words. After more than 20 years of marriage, they could communicate with a glance or a touch, understanding each other completely. "I have been thinking," Xavier said eventually. "James is more than capable of running things now, and Thomas will be a huge help once he finishes his education. Maybe we should start taking it easier, enjoying our grandchildren, traveling a bit." "Travel," Amanda laughed. "Xavier Vaughn, are you suggesting we become people of leisure?" "Not leisure exactly, just less work. We have built something lasting here, Amanda. Something that will continue long after we are gone. Maybe it is time to step back a little and enjoy what we have created." Amanda considered this. It was true that the ranch practically ran itself now, with James managing the day-to-day operations and a crew of experienced hands who needed little supervision. And the idea of having more time to spend with Xavier, to explore places they had never seen, was appealing. "Where would we go?" she asked. "I do not know. Anywhere you want. San Francisco, maybe, or back to St. Louis if you wanted to see how it has changed. Or we could just stay right here and spend our days sitting on this porch, watching our grandchildren grow. I do not care where we are as long as we are together." "Together," Amanda echoed softly. "That is all I have ever wanted. From the moment I arrived here, all I wanted was a place to belong and someone to belong with. You gave me that, Xavier. You gave me everything. You gave me more, Xavier insisted. You gave me love when I had given up on it. You gave me family when I thought I would always be alone. You took this empty house and filled it with life. Every good thing in my world comes from you. They kissed, still as sweet and thrilling after all these years as it had been that first time when James was just hours old. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I love you, Amanda said, more now than ever. And I love you, Xavier replied. Always have, always will. That spring, James and Catherine's son was born, and they named him Xavier Thomas Vaughn. When Xavier held his grandson for the first time, Amanda saw tears streaming down his face. He is perfect, Xavier whispered, looking at the tiny baby with the same wonder he had shown when holding each of his own children. Absolutely perfect. Just like his grandfather, Amanda said softly, putting her arms around Xavier as he held little Xavier. Life continued its beautiful pattern. Sarah married her young man and stayed on the ranch, continuing her horse training work. Thomas came home from university full of ideas for expanding their operations, and under his guidance, the ranch became even more prosperous. Grace surprised everyone by opening an art studio in Green River, painting scenes of ranch and mountain life that became popular with tourists and settlers alike. More grandchildren arrived, filling the ranch with young voices and laughter again. Xavier and Amanda did travel some, taking a memorable trip to San Francisco in 1903, but they always came home to Wyoming, to the land and the life they had built together. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1904, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Children and grandchildren, old friends like Tom and Charlie, neighbors who had become family over the years, all came together to honor Xavier and Amanda's marriage. James stood to give a toast, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. To my parents, who showed all of us what real love looks like. My father took my mother in when she needed help, claimed me as his son when he had every reason not to, and built a family on a foundation of kindness and commitment. He taught me that being a father is about choosing to love, about showing up every day and doing the work. And my mother, who never let circumstances defeat her, who created a home filled with warmth and joy, who loved all of us with a fierceness that made us strong. They built something beautiful together, and all of us are here because of their love. To Xavier and Amanda Vaughn, to Xavier and Amanda, the crowd echoed, raising their glasses. Amanda felt tears on her cheeks as Xavier kissed her softly. Look what we did, she whispered. Look at all of this. We made a good life, Xavier agreed. The best life. That night, after everyone had gone home or gone to bed, Xavier and Amanda walked out to the place where they could see the mountains silhouetted against the stars. They stood together, his arm around her shoulders, her arm around his waist, and looked out at the land they had worked for decades. You remember that first night? Xavier asked. When you arrived exhausted and scared and I brought you here to the ranch. I remember everything about that night, Amanda said. I remember thinking you were too good to be true, that something would go wrong. I remember being terrified that I had made a mistake coming here. And I remember the way you looked at James after he was born, the way you held him and said he would be yours too. That was the moment I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be all right. It was the moment I knew my life had changed forever, Xavier said. I held that tiny baby, and I felt my heart open up in a way it never had before. And when I looked at you, exhausted and brave and beautiful, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life taking care of you both. I did not call it love yet, but that is what it was. I fell in love with you so gradually I almost did not notice it happening, Amanda confessed. Every day you did something kind or said something thoughtful, and my feelings grew deeper. By the time I admitted to myself what I felt, I was already completely in love with you. 25 years, Xavier mused. It has gone by so fast and so slow at the same time. Some days feel like they last forever, but when I look back, it all seems like it happened in a blink. We have 25 more years ahead of us at least, Amanda said firmly. I am not done with you yet, Xavier Vaughn. Xavier laughed and pulled her closer. Good, because I am nowhere near done with you either. We have grandchildren to watch grow up and probably great-grandchildren eventually. We have years of sitting on our porch watching sunsets. We have a whole lifetime still to live together. Together, Amanda repeated, the word that had defined their entire relationship. Always together. They stood under the Wyoming stars, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting. A pregnant woman alone in the world and a rancher who looked at her circumstances and said yes anyway. Two people who chose love even when it was complicated, who built a family from determination and compassion, who created a legacy that would last for generations. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and summer. In the distance, a coyote called and another answered. The mountains stood eternal against the sky, silent witnesses to all the lives lived in their shadow. Xavier and Amanda turned and walked back toward the house together, their steps matched after so many years of walking side by side. The house was lit from within, warm and welcoming, full of memories and love. Their house, their home, their life together. As they climbed the porch steps, Xavier paused and turned to Amanda, framing her face with his hands the way he had done countless times over the years. In the soft light spilling from the windows, they looked at each other, seeing the years written on each other's faces, but also seeing the young people they had been when they first met. I would do it all again, Xavier said quietly. Every single day, every challenge, every moment. I would choose you every time, Amanda. And I would choose you, Amanda replied, her voice thick with emotion. You and this life and this family, every single time. They kissed, tender and deep, a kiss that held 25 years of love and commitment and partnership. When they finally drew apart, both were smiling. Come on, Xavier said, taking her hand. Let us go home. Hand in hand, they walked through the door into the house filled with the life they had created together, into the warmth and light of a love that had started with impossible circumstances and grown into something beautiful and unbreakable. The door closed behind them, and the house glowed like a beacon in the Wyoming night, a testament to the power of choosing love, of saying yes when the world says no, of building a family on the foundation of kindness and commitment. They had started with nothing but hope and a willingness to try. They had built an empire of love that would last for generations. And they had proven that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the simplest act of compassion, with one person looking at another's burden and saying, "Let me help you carry that." Xavier and Amanda Vaughn lived the rest of their long lives together on the ranch they had built, surrounded by children and grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. They grew old together, their love deepening with every passing year, their bond unbreakable. When Xavier died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, with Amanda beside him holding his hand, his last words were, "Best decision I ever made was taking a chance on you." And when Amanda followed him 2 years later, surrounded by her family in the house that had been her home for more than 40 years, her last words were, "I am coming, Xavier. Wait for me." They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, their graves marked with simple stones that bore their names and a single inscription, "Together, always." The ranch continued, passed down through the generations, A lasting legacy of two people who found each other when they needed each other most and built something that would endure long after they were gone. And every generation that came after heard the story of how it all began, with a pregnant woman arriving on a stagecoach and a rancher who said, "That baby will be mine too," and meant it with his whole heart. It was a love story for the ages, born in the Wild West, forged in hardship and hope, and lasting beyond a lifetime. A story of family, of chosen love, of two souls finding their home in each other. And it all started with a simple act of kindness that changed everything.